I am Fatima. That is my bike. And today I want to introduce this 1,200 mile cycling challenge that I had set for myself in September. At the time of recording this, I actually don't have an introductory video to this channel, which I feel is what you can expect. But if you're like, who is this person? That's fine. You'll find out. So the main point of this video is to introduce you to the challenge, to talk about what's like the point of it for me and what are some of the inspirations behind it. Then I'll talk you through the things that are like the rules that I've made for it, the not rules, the things that it's just like, I'm not going to sweat every sort of technical thing. And then the stuff that is kind of a gray area. Um, I've got some notes that says notes, and I'm going to reference that a little bit. So as the channel develops, like I intend to get more into videography and cinematography. But for now, yeah, this is me and my laptop, and that is my backlighting. And if I sort of do this, I look like I'm in a real old school painting. You know the ones. So, okay, what am I talking about? So, 1,200 miles. Why? Because I want to, and because I can. So, yeah, I feel extremely lucky and extremely privileged to be able to do it physically. I have a hybrid work situation, so fully recognize that not everybody, would be able to do something like this. Um, Actually, the first year that I did it, I did 1,000 miles, and I was between jobs. So I partly was like, well, I know that I'm waiting for. I think I had a part-time job at a gym, and I was like, well, I wait for this full-time contract to kick in or agreement to kick in. Let me just go see if I can ride 1,000 miles. So that's where the challenge began. Is like, can I do this? And what is it? What does it feel like? And what does it require? And then how? What happens after? What happens after is like I don't want to be on my bike for a while. Um, but I also wanted to kind of prepare myself more for endurance and ultra endurance rides and races. I thought, if I want to do several thousand miles in, say, 3 weeks, well, doing it in 4 weeks is going to make it physically and mentally easier, right? So there's a little bit of just kind of scaling up my own growth. Um, just a personal challenge as well. Um, Riding every single day on average with a high level of consistency just to do it is pretty intense. I have been a bike messenger, like very rarely. I'll jump on the bike and do a delivery these days, but when I was doing it almost every day um, for money and food, it was a different sort of commitment. So doing riding like this recreationally is a really interesting challenge for me because I came to cycling through being a bike messenger. And I'll talk more about that down the road. Now I'm just going to look at my notes for the rules. So there's a couple. Every year I add 100. So will that last like forever? Probably not. Um, that would be really intense. Yeah, the first year I did 1,000 miles. The second year I did 1,100. Actually, I did like 1203, 1103, 1203 or something like that. And then this year I'll do no like 1,003, 1103, like 2,000, 1,203. Wow. Um, and I'll get to that the dangling three in a minute. So yeah, so now we're in the rules. So at 100 miles every year, um, the ride has to be contained within like September 1st to 30th. Both years, definitely, I was out there and I was like, God, I wish I did this in October so I could have like one extra day. So, I mean, that kind of tells you like the mental state sometimes where it's like, wow, just one more day where I could push all these miles into would be great. But it's got to be in that 1st to 30th. So I do make up miles if I don't say do 40 miles average every day in September this year. Then guess what? There's going to be other days when I'm going to be doing more than 40 and days when I do less. So, um, another rule is I don't use an e-bike. So I could use a mountain bike, a road bike, cyclocross, whatever. But as long as I'm sort of fully powering the experience, I'm not against e-bikes. I've actually never ridden one. And maybe down the road, if I continue this to keep increasing the mileage for years and years and years, then maybe I do half on an e-bike and half without. But for this challenge for this year, that's what I'm going to do. And I do track my data on this watch. Um, yeah. But as a bonus, like have fun and remember it's a privilege. I haven't always, been this sort of strong or had this like flexibility in my schedule, even where I can just replace my morning commute with a bike ride. That's a pretty huge deal. So I don't want to belabor the experience, right? I actually want to like get out there and try to see, new trails or whatever and just enjoy the experience. So what are the things that I don't that aren't rules, if that makes sense? So I don't have to ride every day. Um, there's the course and the terrain in the climbing. There's no amount of like altitude I need to ride at. There's no climbing and descent numbers that I stick to. I could ride one flat 1203 mile course all month, and like that would be fine. I could do 1200 mile loops plus three, and that'd be fine. Am I going to do that? No. But that's like totally within my own sort of rules. Um, fuel, there's no limitations on what I'm eating and drinking. That's just more of an organic thing, and it's something I kind of want to explore. Uh, riding with others isn't a rule. I can ride with other people. I can ride alone. I can join races. So that's pretty open ended. The last 2 years, I think I did every single ride alone, which is wild. And so there's like a mental training component in that, but then there's some like technical benefits to riding with others. And we can get that down the road, I think. What else? There's no rules about gear or weather. Uh I don't need to like wear a lucky jersey every day. I did get some new caps that I'm excited to wear because they just like give me energy when I look at them. Uh don't have to like ride on the coldest and the hottest day of the year or brightest and darkest. Like that's not a part of this. Um, I actually did think of one additional rule for this year, which is I'm going to try to upload a short, like a YouTube short or shorts, whatever it's called, once a day. Um, because this is the first year I'm actually documenting this, like on social media, we're just going to see. I'm going to be flexy with that, which I guess kind of brings us to the gray area stuff. Um, So these are things where it's like it's not a rule, it's not a rule. We'll just kind of play it how it goes and check out the different variables and how they change things. So drafting, because I haven't yet done this with other people, I don't yet know how I feel about drafting. I wouldn't want to draft the entire thing, not for this distance. So if I ended up drafting with a bunch of people, I would probably go faster on those rides or maybe chase a little bit more climbing. Um, so I would just sort of hold myself accountable to adjusting like the difficulty of it. And uh my cat just ran in. And like I just know my personality, so that's what I would do. Um data tracking. So that's like a given. I have to do that to know how far I'm riding. Unless I want to count, like measure a course and then just do it a bunch of times. So if I had to use like my phone or a Wahoo or something, I would do it. So I can be flexible on the exact device. Uh, time zone. I have some travel that I didn't know I was gonna have until like a week or two ago. So I've been thinking about time zone, and I'm thinking like I want to try to still finish within the time zone of the place that I started. So if I go somewhere else and I like gain hours, I wouldn't count those gain, and if I lost them, those hours, like I would still give myself that grace period. Um, I don't think that will be an issue because I plan to end the challenge in the same time zone. Um, we'll see. 2 to 3 hours, which I mentioned a whole bunch of times. So why do I add 2 to 3, not hours, but miles? So this is kind of like the extra mile concept, right? Of like you have the goal and then you push beyond it just for mental toughness. But it's also kind of to keep myself honest because the challenge is about time on the bike. It's about time on the bike. So if I take time to stop at a coffee shop, I keep the watch running because I like to know how much time I was out total. And then my watch breaks it down from like time moving and time stopping. But I try not to count that because sometimes it thinks I'm moving or stopped when I'm not. And, you know, if I need to take like a nature break, which for anyone who doesn't know, like that's just a fancy cycling running word for restroom break. If I get off the bike and cross the street walking, I like to get very technical with that and that specifically. So the cutoff for the time, midnight, and then or 11:59 or whatever, and then the making sure that I absolutely was on my bike for 1200, yeah, for 1200 miles. Like those are really the two things I'm going to get super picky about for the most part. Um, the last gray area thing I can think of is pedaling and coasting. I feel like, you know, when you're on an indoor bike, you're going to be pedaling constantly or your data is not going to show those miles. With this case, like with the amount of distance, I don't need to pedal the whole time and I can't coast the whole time. So I'm going to give myself flexibility there. If I feel like I'm coasting too much, and I'll just gauge that. But there are disadvantages too to coasting too much anyway. You can put some like stress on your joints, and I would say tendons, just from my experience, not research, but just my experience. So it's not something I'm likely to do anyway. Um, and I think those are all the gray areas. So coming up, you know, there's a lot more content. I'm gonna try to do short form stuff just to give you a kind of a glimpse into the mindset I'll be in for the rides. I'll show you some stuff that I am bought in advance or tried out, or I don't know, sometimes some random piece of gear will manifest in the middle of a challenge and I'll realize how amazing it is. Um, some piece of gear might turn out to not be great over the long haul. So there's all kinds of little insights that I plan to offer, but um, yeah, I really just wanted to kind of get this out there so that I had it done and could start moving on to this, like, I don't know, the details. I really like the details. The big picture is interesting, I think, but for me this is just an introduction to the project because it's coming up in gosh, 3 days. So, it's also just a way for me to start grounding myself mentally in this challenge, which like is hard. Like I've been nervous for it. I don't quite feel nervous. There's like more of an excitement now, but I'm realizing since this is my third year doing this type of thing, there is like some mental preparation that it's nice to put into it rather than just be like, oh, it's the first, I'm going to jump on my bike. And for some people, at sometimes that's also going to be great. Um, yeah, more details. At the time of recording this, I have 0 subscribers and 0 watches. So if you're the first person and you've made it through the whole video, thank you. Um, would love to know what questions you have. Would love to know what advice you have if you've done something like this before. And yeah, I will see you in the next one.